one of the expert speakers that were with us in Dallas this week is back with us today on radio, and we're really pleased to have her with us, Patty Fontenot, the president of private exchange business at Cigna. Patty, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, nice to have you on.
Good to be here.
Yeah, it was good to see you this week. Give our audience a little bit of background on yourself with your exchange experience and on what you're doing there at Cigna.
Happy to. Yes. At Cigna, I'm the president of the private exchange business, and in that space, I am responsible for Cigna's exchange, which is Cigna Guided Solutions, as well as the exchanges that we participate on that are sponsored by others. So we're on 35 exchanges for active employees, 29 with ancillary products, and then 5 for our retiree products as well. Prior to Cigna, I was the CEO of Connect for Health Colorado, which was Colorado's public exchange. So I have both sides of that coin.
Yeah. Patty, you were obviously with us in Dallas and did a great job there. And, we were just talking on the program before this about, the high energy discussions that were not only around the panels but were throughout the event because, as I alluded to, it's an information feeding frenzy right now. People are really trying to figure out, what should I do next? What should I do now? Talk a little bit about what you see as the core value drivers of a private exchange and what are the potential downsides an employer should consider.
Sure. Well, it was interesting at the event to listen to this because I really do believe that folks have coalesced around what does an exchange, a private exchange, bring to the table. And really there's three pieces to it. One, and there is some debate on it, but is the cost control or stabilization for the employer. The second is the administrative simplification. And third is that consumerism, that choice and retail experience. So just a little bit about that, I honestly believe that it's that third piece. It's that connection to the consumer, and it's the online shopping and comparing and the transparency that ultimately will be the biggest success factor for these online marketplaces. And if you think about how people in our world today access anything, they always go online and they shop and they compare and that's the way not only to help guide those decision support tools, guide people to the right choices, but also the best way to keep them engaged throughout the year in becoming better health care consumers. And I think that's one of the goals for every carrier and every employer. Someone at the conference said that exchanges are a benefit delivery and consumer engagement mechanism. And I really liked that. That stuck with me. So I think across the board, and we can talk more about the other two, about the cost control and the administrative simplification, but I think in the long haul that engagement with the consumer is going to be a driving force. What an employer has to be, think about and be concerned about with exchanges, and I think this was woven through the panels at the conference as well, was whether or not they're distancing themselves, they're disengaging from their employees. Are they giving up control of their benefit strategy? Are they getting set in a preset plan design where they might want more customization, and then other things. Are there narrower products and formularies and networks? Is that a concern? Can they shift? Does it lock them into a model? Are they going to get the same reporting and analytics they may have with their current approach? So there's a series of things that they just have to really take a look at. But it was, and I think all of those things were highlighted in the session.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with your discussion around consumerism and engagement. I think if the engaged models execute right, with their employer clients and advisors, consultants that work for them, and they become that 365-day, 24/7 engagement portal, that's where we're going to see the real cost savings and the real benefits, and actually I believe the real retention value of a workforce that's in an exchange as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the things I said on the panel that I participated in was that there's, really the way we're going to make a difference over the long haul is going to be with what we put on the shelves of these online marketplaces. The online marketplace itself has a value, and I actually think that can help in those first couple of years and with costs. If you implement defined contribution and you've got carrier competition, but over time, the way you really do have a drive in reducing costs and starting to bend that trend is through the types of products that you put on your shelves, the clinical and disease management programs you use, the types of benefits, consumer-driven health plans, and ultimately how you engage and motivate and incent your employees.
Patty, is it your view that first generation with a workforce, we've got to be really careful not to overwhelm them in the first or even the second open enrollment period, not overwhelm that consumer with too many choices?
Yeah, right. Everybody wants choice until they have too much of it. I think the key there in an increasingly complex world, I think the key there is going to be good, strong decision support tools. And I think that gets to that whole retail experience, because really what we're doing is trying to bring almost a personalization and customization to the end consumer, and basically saying there is something out there that exactly fits your needs. I think that's what Cigna is working to do, as well as other carriers. So how do you, in an environment where people want so many different things and have so many different scenarios, how do you serve that up in a way that's easy? And I do believe it's going to be through our consumer-facing portals. It's the decision support tools that exist, and ultimately it's going to be the online apps. It's going to be the mobile devices. It's how do we make this easy in an environment where if you have 20 plans and you have employees, someone's going to choose each one of those different plans.
Yeah, we're going to have to hold their hands at first. Agree? I mean, but I think consumers have shown us already that have moved into full replacement programs over the last few years that they can handle choice. I mean, I think there's still some that are on the pessimistic side saying that consumers can't handle choice. Well, I'm on the side saying yes, they can. I think they embrace it once they understand it. Agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And I think someone brought up the point about the retirement, the transition in the retirement space, kind of in the 80s and 90s as 401ks became available. And I think if you asked most employers in the early 80s, can their employees handle the financial decisions, the answer would be no. Ultimately, what we found is there's a sector of the population that does. They want to get their hands in there and really dig around in it. And then for the portion of the population that would prefer to have someone else do it for them, that's been made available as well.
Yeah, Patty, from the event and what you've heard from your current customers and clients and prospects, do you see private exchanges as a vehicle here to stay? And if so, do you see rapid adoption moving forward?
Yeah, well, given my role, that's kind of a rhetorical question, but the answer is yes. I do believe they're here to stay, and then the question is going to be in what form. And ultimately, because I think the best question is what's a private exchange? To me, a private exchange is an online marketplace, and I think these are going to morph in the coming years as we react to what employers want and ultimately what employees want. But I do think they're here to stay, and I kind of alluded to it earlier because of that retail piece. Because people want choice and people want to go online and people want to do this in a way that they're familiar with in many other industries. So I think ultimately that that online marketplace is something we're going to see, whether it's in today's form or a future form. I think they're here to stay.
Patty, it was we alluded to it early on the program today, and it was the general session that John Young moderated with the consulting houses that own the private exchange platforms and the different different models, and you heard the back and forth that went on there, and your opinion is there a one specific best model for an employer to consider?
Yeah, I'll tell you, that was fun to watch, and I think there's a lot of debate about the fully insured versus self-insured versus defined contribution, not. Ultimately, where I think it is yes, there's a one best model for an employer. It's going to be different by employer, though. So, and to a certain extent, what I'm saying is no, there's not. We're not. I don't think we're going to see this market move towards every consulting house having, or every broker having one type of exchange. I think the same way we have different needs and across the board, there's going to be a need for these variations in these models. Sometimes based on the size of the employer, sometimes based on the employee base. I think there's enough differences out there that it warrants these different approaches.
Yeah, it's like right now, Patty, in the market, the majority. I mean, there's all these various different benefit strategies by employers right now. So I think that's one of the misconceptions that I see in the marketplace. I think we're all trying to help the market find answers to, and the fact that, first of all, an exchange is a part of your benefit strategy. It's not a tactic; it's part of your benefit strategy. But whatever benefit strategy you an employer decide to execute, you execute, and you use an exchange to execute that. Agree?
I actually completely agree with you. I think someone in one of the early sessions said it was a tactic, not a strategy. And the number of times that people brought that up throughout the remaining sessions saying, it's not a tactic, it's really not. It's part of the strategy, but it's not the sole part. Again, it's what you put on the shelves. It's how you approach it. It's the integrated solution. Cigna's approach really is around an integrated approach to the total health of your population. That is really what the value we bring to the market, and we've not changed that value prop with a private exchange approach. That still matters to us.
No, and you actually alluded to it earlier when you talked about your 3 points. If we think about one of the number one challenges with the whole health and productivity side of the equation in your benefit strategy has been keeping employees engaged. And then if you think about the consumerism engagement part of an exchange portal, all that's going to work together. Education is a common denominator, communication is a common denominator, connectivity and engagement. So I believe all boats are going to rise because the health and productivity piece is going to be more engaged. You're going to be more engaged at the decision point of what choices for your family. You're going to be more engaged on becoming that better consumers of healthcare. It's everything you just talked about earlier.
Yep, I completely agree with you.
How is this going to change the world for I've had an opportunity to speak in front of quite a few broker and consultant groups recently, and I kind of have my views that I really respect your views. How's this going to change the world for consultants and brokers?
I think exchanges are a disruption in the industry. And what I've found and what we've started to see broadly is that there are different types of organizations that are coming in to be exchange vendors, exchange providers. So in that regard, you've got retail groups moving into that space. You've got financial services organizations moving into that space. And then what it's doing, as you've got different groups coming in to provide the vehicle and the mechanism around it, and then additionally, there's other groups coming in and saying, if you are an exchange vendor or an exchange provider, you can't be an independent advisor in that regard. And I think you heard some of the consulting houses saying, well, that's another division within our organization, so there's a separation there. But I think there are employers that are out there saying, no, if I want a completely independent evaluation of whether or not an exchange makes sense to me, I need to go to someone who doesn't have an exchange. So I think the roles are shifting here, and because it is such an interesting and new space, we've got some less traditional players entering the market. So I think it will have an impact. I don't think that that brokers and consultants are going away. I think there's a tremendous need for them because of the complexity of the space, but ultimately might the roles shift and realign? I think that's likely to happen.
Yeah, I think some brokers will go away if they do not change. I think they truly have to become that trusted advisor. They've got to really relook at how they do business and become that trusted advisor. And then I think there's a very, very relevant role for them to play.
I think that's really astute. I think those groups that don't change in this new environment and try to hold on to kind of what is an older and more traditional view may not make it through this. But I think broadly we're just going to see the roles shifting as we move forward.
Patty, and quickly, the last question that I had for you was on the other side of the house, where you're working with other exchange platforms to get the Cigna offering onto those platforms. Give us a little bit about what that discussion is with all these other exchange platforms that you're trying to get your products onto.
Sure. And I think that the best way, I said it before, but I'm going to underline it because it's important, and that is Cigna's approach has always been an integrated health and wellness approach. And so in that setting, the idea is that the best way to control costs is to control and improve the health of your employee population. And as we move forward, the exchanges that make the most amount of sense to us are those exchanges that allow us to continue to move in that direction. And it is those exchanges that have that same philosophy. I think there is a little bit of a danger of, if you focus only on the cheapest price, that what ends up happening is you lose the chance to improve the health of those that work in your organization. So as we've gone out, we've turned some exchanges down because they try to strip out our ability to be able to help the employer improve the health of their employees. And so that's been our philosophy, and we're really trying to bring it to this space as well.
That's well said, Patty. I really appreciate you being on with us today, and I want to give you a chance to leave our audience with a couple takeaways, if you would, please.
I'd be happy to. As we go through this, I think I'm going to underline what I said before. This is a space that is new and exciting, but the way we are going to achieve long-term cost savings is going to be by improving our total medical costs. So innovative products, integrated solutions, and engaged and educated employees. I think that's probably the greatest value here, and Cigna is excited to be playing in this space and working to achieve the best results. And something, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's probably the most important point that I want to make.
That's well said, Patty. Listen, I really appreciate, first of all, you being with us in Dallas this week and then taking the time to join us today. And to our audience, you will be able to listen to Patty at our June forum. She will be a general session speaker at our June Expo, which will be the 23rd through the 25th in June. Listen, have a happy Easter weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, Patty.